Yes, good morning, good afternoon. Hey, this is Chris Breyer from Cloudian. Thank you, Red 8, for having us on, and thank you, everybody out there, for joining. Good afternoon, good morning, depending where you are in the United States. Um, so today we're here to talk about successful hybrid multi-cloud strategies. And I think first you need, before you can be successful, you need a hybrid multi-cloud strategy. Just a little background from LinkedIn and my career. I've been only in the storage industry. And I just recall going back to day one at EMC when 50 terabytes was a fantastic find to go ahead and try and help customers with that explosive amount of data. Now we're talking about petabytes and exabytes. And throughout career and through transition, following the trends, unstructured data and hybrid cloud strategy seems to be top of mind for a lot of people. So what we do is we have a presentation for you. I'm going to share some content right now. And hopefully you can all see the screen.
We can see it.
Perfect, thank you. So along with myself today, we have Tito Hernandez. He's a senior systems engineer along with Cloudian. We've been working together now, coming up on 5 years together through quite a few different companies. The last 3 to 4 years have been all in the object storage, unstructured data space. So I want to start off a little bit with some of the challenges that you're facing. These are actually some comments that I received from the field. And when we talk about cloud, there's a lot of definitions on how people define cloud today. First and foremost, there's a lot of people that still, when you say cloud, it means public cloud in my shop. It means not in my data center. It means AWS, it means Azure, it means Google. It means using somebody else's actual resources. Now, that had been a cloud initiative, had been very prevalent for quite a long time. And a lot of companies still today have a cloud first initiative. But many companies that have gone into the cloud are getting varied results, not exactly what they thought they would. So now cloud first has now become cloud smart. And I actually like that term. It's from one of the clients out there from Red 8, cloud smart. And I believe what that means is being able to have public cloud and on-premise cloud work collectively and be smart about where you're placing your data. Now we talk about the challenges that are being faced. A lot of them that are coming from the companies today that are employing a public cloud strategy is migration of workloads. Integration are all concerns. How does this integrate with what's on premise today? How does this integrate with our applications? And then they find that as they go on along their journey, that changes in leadership at high levels have shifting priorities. A lot of times it's, well, we need everything to be an OpEx model. We should be trying to rent as much as we can. And then they find that sometimes the OpEx model, depending on what you've chosen, isn't actually delivering you the savings you thought. So then you get a change of leadership, which could be, now we're going to go Capex. We have a lot of cash that we're sitting on. So let's go ahead and invest in our own data centers and our own people. So how do you go ahead and be support the changing shifts in priorities? When we get to the end here, we have a lot of people that hit what's called the cost tipping point of the cloud. A lot of public clouds offer very low cost of entry, and it's really easy to spin up and spin down and burst. But the challenge is that there's a cost tipping point. Depending on the data, the characteristics of your data, you'll soon find that many companies will get to a point where the public cloud is more expensive than if they built it on premise. At the end of the day, what's the last thing that people are concerned about? Most of them, it's data placement is my concern. Is it a cost-effective solution? Is it accessible? And is it protected? So these are some of the concerns and challenges that are being faced today from clients that we're speaking to regarding cloud. Now we talk about hybrid multi-cloud. I think that today's storage challenges of data are actually data challenges. And the reason why is that there are now so many new sources, the volume is ever increasing. The retention policies are not set it and forget it one for all. There's a lot of different retention policies that you're setting on your data. There's compliance and security concerns as well too. Now, most of you have seen the graph on the left, accelerating capacity growth. It's been used by a lot of different vendors for a lot of different technology. And what I find amusing about this is that we'll all have a way of explaining this graph and why it's very important. If you look at the graph in the very bottom, the dark blue section's called enterprise data. I would kind of classify that. We could do it one of two ways. We could call it structured versus unstructured. We could call it fast data versus capacity, but it's only 20% of what's being produced today. We talk about these new sources for voice over IP, social media, sensors and data, images for PACS and healthcare, genomic studies. These are all unstructured. And that's projected to be 80% of the data being produced in your shop today, regardless of your vertical. I would be hard pressed to find somebody that has the inverse of that, where 80% is actually structured and 20 is unstructured. There are some, but it's very rare. So that being said, if you've got all this new data, what are some of your options? Well, the need for a multi-cloud strategy is probably what most people are looking for today. IDC is predicting that 50% of clients today that are in some type of a public cloud model will be moving to a private cloud over the next 2 years. What they found as well too is that public cloud kind of, you would believe, is a very neutral, no lock-in, but public clouds can be, you can lock in as well too. It's very easy to get a lot of data out to a public cloud, but getting it back in, if you've tried, is not that easy. So how do you set yourself up in a hybrid multi-cloud environment where you can support all the needs of your organization? Now, this was just something I did for fun. AWS, and I love these guys because they've made the public cloud so aware for everybody that you do have options. It's great, and I would assume everybody has an AWS account or an Azure account, and you're using it to some point. But where's your own personal tipping point? There's a lot of calculation you can use, and I just went to the AWS website. Here's a calculator. I made a very simple input. I just put in a petabyte of storage, and I just, in my calculations here, you're not going to do anything with it. It's just going to sit. You're not going to retrieve it. There's no egress charges. Now, granted, these are their published prices. And I know AWS is also willing to, depending on size of accounts, they'll work with you as well too. But the published price for S3 IA, which is the infrequent access of data, is roughly $15,000 a month. Or a 3-year cost is $500,000. S3, their more performance storage, is $25,000 a month, and just a little over $900,000 for a 3-year cost. Now, depending on the characteristics of your data, some of the things that you'll find with all public clouds is that it's unpredictable. You thought it would be a great OpEx run rate, but because of how you use your data, how much you want to retrieve, how you want to access it, and the value you want to get from it, there's a lot of unknowns that make it a very unpredictable model. When it comes to running OpEx expenses, it's nothing that's fixed, and so sometimes it causes trouble for a lot of clients and customers. One story that's been out on LinkedIn was about NASA. So this is available. You can read this it's on LinkedIn. It's also on the web as well too. NASA was looking to increase its storage by 215 petabytes by 2025, and these are just the highlights. They currently had 32 petabytes of managed premise on-premise storage. They signed a contract. They were going to have a public cloud fulfill the requirements. Projected total cost was $65 million. Challenge is in some of the reporting is that they may have not projected the cost to get the data back to actually analyze and use it. The projected cost for that over the same period of time might be as high as $30 million. So as you can see here, what seemed like a great idea to be able to use resources for the major portion of their storage needs wasn't calculated correctly. And that's where they may have got to that tipping point that we'll call, where the use of a public cloud was not as advantageous had they shifted more to a mixed model and maybe increased an on-premise footprint. Now, where's object storage fitting for you? We talked about two different things. We talked about unstructured data versus structured data. We talk about fast data here versus capacity data. Depending on your own organization, you may have conversations around your data different ways. You may call it fast and capacity, structured versus unstructured, legacy versus transactional or needed today. There's a lot of different ways to do it. What we find is that 20%, as we talked about, which is that enterprise data, is considered the fast data, the structured data. And it's sitting on a lot of different devices from a lot of great vendors. And this is something that is very important to your organization. The capacity data, which is now 80% for most organizations, is something that is typically unstructured and you can have different options on how you can go ahead and store it. Looking at some of the basic use cases and taking out of consideration ones that are maybe industry specific, the real easy things to look at when you talk about capacity data for your organization is data protection, backup services. Where is that sitting today? Is it sitting on tape? Is it sitting on some type of a disk array being replicated to another disk array? Is it in a backup device? These are something that's really a great target for some type of capacity type data object storage like Cloudian. NAS offload. Love the NAS environments today. They're fantastic. They serve multiple purposes, they have multiple protocol. Most companies today have some type of a NAS instance, and they serve a really good purpose for the company. Coming from a NAS company before, where I actually spent 5 years, what I found with a lot of my clients is that it's so easy to use that a lot of times data would be put there. It could have been put somewhere else, less expensively, or it just got bloated and it wasn't managed properly. So offloading NAS is a great way to also use Cloudian object storage to lower your cost of overall storage needs. And the other one I kind of highlight there that's highlighted is the video surveillance. Doesn't matter if you're a state or local government, if you're a hospital, if you're a university, your own plants, your own offices. Most people have some type of video surveillance needs. Very big in the entertainment industry as well too, and gambling industry. I'm here in Henderson, Nevada. Video surveillance just can consume a lot of storage, and these are some ideal candidates. So what I kind of propose when we're talking about hybrid multi-cloud strategy is, if you agree that 80% of your data is coming from new sources and unstructured, by focusing on the 80%, you can make a bigger impact for your organization. That's what we're here to help with. And I apologize, apparently my screen froze. Press one more time. So you're all out there. Hope you're enjoying yourself and this is good so far. There we go. All right. Technical difficulty. That's my one. I'm allowed one, and I promise no more. Well, I'll do my best. So why is 50% of the data headed to on-premise cloud today? Well, a lot of this is because you have the same attributes and advantages that you would get from a public cloud, but you can do it on-premise. Modular scalability. One of the advantages of a public cloud is pay as we go. Well, most of the on-premise object storage systems today, Cloudian, we can do the same thing. You can start very small, 100 terabytes, and grow into the exabytes seamlessly. Global single namespace. Very few locations today, or very few companies, have just one site. Most of you are operating global. You have an instance and you have some type of representation in APAC and EMEA. You're all over the place. Well, you can have a global single namespace to protect all of your data and share your data. It's also hybrid and multi-cloud ready. One thing that the on-premise storage, cloud object storage, allows you to do is to be able to go ahead and use a variety of clouds, not just one cloud, to go ahead and scale and use all of the resources that are available to you today. And lastly, I think a lot of people are finding too, when we talk about that tipping point, is at scale, it's less expensive than most public clouds. Built out properly with some type of a planning, you can scale, and typically the larger the scale gets, the more the performance increases on premise, and also you can lower your cost year over year. Now, when you talk about unstructured data today, we're talking about the S3 and the API and why this matters. The reason why this matters is S3 is the new storage language of the cloud. If you want to speak to any of the public clouds, you want to be able to speak S3. You want to have a very S3 robust and very S3 mature type of infrastructure. I think what you'll find is that on the left, we've put up 15 different logos. And out of these 15 different logos, they're all S3 compatible one way or another, which means they support cloud, hybrid cloud, multi-cloud, object storage, Cloudian, on-premise. I'd be hard-pressed to say that anyone attending today probably doesn't have at least 3 or 4 of those technologies on the left in their environment today. Most everybody's using VMware to some extent. There is some type of a backup application, whether it's Rubrik, Veeam, Commvault, Veritas. You probably have some type of a fast storage, Pure, Dell, NetApp, and then you're doing maybe some type of a analytics with Splunk or Hadoop. All of these can leverage an S3, which means you can leverage on-premise object storage. When you look at building out your next environment, I think what's really important to look at is, well, if I'm going to go down this journey, I feel that I do need some type of a hybrid multi-cloud strategy. I don't feel that we're quite there yet. You want something that gives you the most options. Now, a lot of the competition today does have an S3 object storage, and there's some type of an S3 access layer. What we find is that most of them, when you look at their ratings and rankings, they kind of are in the 82, 84%, 86% compatibility, which is not bad at all, and it might be fine for some, but Cloudian today has an S3 API guarantee of 100%. What we feel this allows you is a lot of comfort, a little bit of safety, knowing that when you find that in hybrid multi-cloud strategy and then on-premise is working for you, more of your applications that you're currently doing today that might be in different silos on more expensive storage, you can leverage a Cloudian instance on-premise for a lot less money. That's freeing up more budget for other type of projects inside of your environment. Another big advantage is the scalability. I know a lot of times when you talk about purchasing on-premise and you have your conversations around budgeting, right? It's okay, do we buy just enough today and then scale? How easy is it to add more storage into an environment? Should we go ahead and buy for 5 years and hope we get into it because we get a better price today? There's a lot of different ways to analyze how you're purchasing storage today. Well, the nice thing about Cloudian on-premise is that we can start extremely small. We do have deployments today that are in the hundreds of petabytes. We know we can scale to the exabyte range, but we can scale very easily. It's just by adding more nodes, and it's an all-inclusive system. You can scale from as little as just under 100 terabytes into exabytes very seamlessly. The nice thing about the on-premise solution as well too is that you'll notice that the performance grows as well. When you're using a lot of public clouds today, yes, you can scale those, but there's really a couple options for you on, for example, at AWS, you have an IA or an S3, and those are your two options. But you can actually scale performance as well on an internal private cloud. Now, once you've got that all set up, you're worried or concerned about some, your data protection. Typical today for a lot of storage is replication. Replication is what you're doing for your data protection, which means you have some type of a hot site, you might have a failover, you have a second site. Well, we give you a lot of options as well too. When you talk about building your on-premise cloud to integrate with a hybrid multi-cloud strategy, depending on your needs and data characteristics, and a lot of times we're going to talk about those data characteristics. How often do you access it? What's important? What's the retention level? These are all very important. We can do a site-to-site for remote site, or you can also go ahead and use some type of a replication into a public cloud. And you have multiple options there as well too. Now on the right-hand side, this is something that's very nice for clients and customers today that have 3 or more sites. If you do, you can do your own erasure coding across multiple sites. This allows you to take your data, put it in one namespace across multiple sites, and lowering the cost of the implementation, and also making your data more available. When we talk about standard storage systems, and I remember back in the day going from company A to company B, we talked about 5 and 6 nines of reliability. Today, when we're talking about data protection, we're talking about 14 nines of data durability. The fun little fact about that is that means that you might lose data every 3 billion years or so. And these are some really crazy numbers, but these are the type of things that you can achieve right now with erasure coding and object storage with its inherent reliability. So cloud ready. You know, everybody today, virtually cloud will be part of every conversation you have, whether it's software defined, whether it's software as a service, whether it's your networking, you have a lot of options. So how has your primary strategy changed? Has it changed, and if so, why? Where a lot of clients before were running a couple of years back into a cloud first initiative, they've kind of got to those points where the data characteristics are telling them that maybe they should do something different. There's a lot of different options for you. The first thing that you can do is when you look at analysis, which we're happy to help you with, is kind of talk about a private cloud. What does private cloud look like for you? Well, private cloud just means bringing all the attributes that you loved about public cloud options onto your own data centers. You can build a multi-site, you can build multi-tenant. You also have the ability of acting like a broker of services with quality of service and billing. A lot of times when you're companies that I've worked with and they're purchasing, making storage purchases, they're trying to figure out, well, how do we allocate this back into the department that's actually consuming it? They want to become a broker of services. They want to be able to manage all the data, know where it sits. We can help you with that with our multi-tenant, multi-site billing capabilities. You can do a hybrid cloud. Maybe this is where you want to start. You figure it's a good idea because of you want to eliminate egress charges. You don't want to get the unpredictability in the bills that you get from public clouds. You want to put your unstructured data in a private cloud. But you don't want to put a second site out there. You want to leverage something in the public to have another tier or a replicate to. So you can tier off the data that's no longer being used into a public cloud. That way you're supporting both the OpEx and the Capex models, and you can shift easily between them. And then on the right, a lot of companies today are kind of striving for this. It's multi-cloud. I know that my data continues to grow. I understand that the cost can be very inexpensive for on-premise. I need to be able to support, or still want to support Azure, Google, and AWS, but I want to be able to shift and move my data back and forth. I don't want to be tied into one strategy. I want to have a strategy that allows me to use everything that's available to me today, knowing that I can have even more options in the future. So the multi-cloud strategy is where a lot of companies are kind of trying to head to today, and that's where we find most of them are on the journey to. When you talk about your options today, there are object storage options, that's for sure. We work very similar in a lot of different ways. There's a lot of different characteristics that make one better than the other. But what you find, I think, is that when it comes down to it, so who's already done this today? Who's implemented an on-premise object storage? Who's integrated with other clouds? And what are the results? If you look at Gartner Peer Insights, and I really like the Peer Insights because this is the users. It's people that are polled. What you'll find is that Cloudian today, Hyperstore, has got 93% yes rating. So 93% of them out there are saying, yep, we made the right decision. We love what we did. So I find that it's, in addition to having highest rating, we also have the most reviews. Currently today we have hundreds and hundreds of implementations worldwide in all sectors. And we also have the highest recommendation level. If you were going to recommend this to a friend, it would be Cloudian. I kind of like it to Yelp. This is Yelp for object storage. I'm a Yelper. I just got my Yelp Elite badge for 2020, and I'm really excited about that. And when people ask me, what restaurant, what gym, whatever, I'm happy to give them a recommendation. And that's what I think Gartner Peer Insights is doing for us. It's helping us let you know that when it comes down to it, people have tried it, done it, and been there before you. They've had really good results. Now I'm going to talk really quickly about Cloudian Family. And what I like about the Cloudian Family in this slide is there's really two things that we do. We're not trying to be a storage company that does everything for everybody. What we're trying to do is focus on something that's growing, that's important for most people today, where we know that we've got expertise. We have two items. It's a Hyperstore, the object storage appliance or software defined, and we have a Hyperfile NAS controller. The Hyperstore S3 compatible API, best guarantee in the market today. As a matter of fact, if you get an email from me, you want to contact me on my return email, it says right there, 100% S3 guarantee. It's on my email signature. We have scale out architecture, easy to grow, easy to manage. One thing I'll mention about the scale out architecture, which is really important as well too, is when we talk about scale out architecture, it's very easy for you to go ahead and manage a lot of data very simply. And then Hyperfile NAS. This is a way for you to go ahead and also help have a NAS interface, if you will, along with your scalable file infrastructure. Right. Choice of deployment models. There are some that love building things with the easy button, the big, gigantic red easy button. We have that for you. That would be the appliance model. We can go ahead and we can install as appliances. It's very dense, very compact. You can get 4U option, which is just under a petabyte, pre-configured, tested, easy to do. Drop it in your data centers, or you can do software defined. There's a lot of you out there that have relationships. It could be with Dell hardware, it could be with Cisco. I mean, there's a list that we kind of support. We deploy on x86 hardware or VMs on premise from the cloud. So for those of you that like to be a little bit more in control of the hardware that you're deploying on, that would be our software defined model. And this applies for both the Hyperfile and the Hyperstore. Now, what is one thing that's missing, everyone says? I like the idea of building some type of on-premise model. Gee, it would be great to be able to get all that infrastructure in place, save my company money, be able to serve up the data faster, have it protected, know where it is. It's all great, sounds good. But man, we love a consumption model. We like the idea of only paying for what we use. But we're offering an on-premise private cloud as well too. The three big advantages of it are monthly billing. It's OpEx and not a lease. It's available right here in the United States with you. So what we do is you're basically paying for the storage as you consume it. And now what we find is that this allows you to not have to be as accurate up front when you're calculating your first year run rate, second year run rate, because there's a lot of different storage devices today, applications that'll be pushing to an object storage. We just don't know when and where, and you probably don't either. So that's why we're offering a consumption model. Another great thing about the consumption model is it's cost effective. When you start looking at public cloud models today, it's under $0.01 a gig per month. So this is well below what a lot of the public clouds are charging you today, with all the advantages and security that you want from a cloud model for object storage on premise. Now, for the next little while right here, I'm going to turn this over to Tito Hernandez. We have just a couple of use cases that he's going to take you through before we go ahead and do a quick wrap up and then questions. Take it, Tito.
Good morning, afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are. From a data protection standpoint, Cloudian actually essentially is integrated with every single enterprise solution out there. So, when you're looking at the cost of maintaining the data on its own devices or purpose-built backup appliance, whatever those may be, we can save up to 70% of those devices, right? We're actually 100 times faster than tape, since tape is an offline media, and you probably need to recall it back policy-based replication. We can replicate from your on-prem to the cloud or to a remote site or to a hosted site. As long as it's an S3 compatible environment, we can actually just point the data to it. We can also provide TCO reports, tape versus object storage. We've done a lot of analysis around that. And we can definitely show in a multi-year cost model the total cost of ownership of tape versus object, where tape actually comes up on top. Next slide, Chris. So storage as a service. We actually have been providing MSPs with our solution. Why? Because we actually in the marketplace have the highest S3 API compatibility. So we follow exactly what AWS is offering from an API standard. So we actually provide 100% of the spec of what AWS offers. Quality of service controls, we actually provide QoS within the system, so you are able to essentially rate limit clients, whitelist, whatever that might be. You don't have to actually buy additional components to actually handle that quality of service. Billing, we already have multi-tenancy built into the system, so billing is something that we can provide, and some of the MSPs have essentially rebranded our management environment to provide a management console to their customers, showing that it's their management console. Enterprise file services, such as Dropbox or Box environments, we can definitely provide those as well. Being that it's an S3 and we behave just like any cloud that's an S3, we actually are able to provide that service and that sync and share kind of environment. Next slide, Chris. So, here's an example, right? So, Milk Cloud 2.0, they actually deployed us to do a lot of their backup as a service. You can see we deployed 10 petabytes of storage within their environment across 2 sites. And, this is a, exact quote from their leadership. The powerful hybrid cloud solution offers ease of use, performance, inherited security, and affordability designed for specifically the warfighter. So, this is, you guys have, it's military, right? So we're actually in multiple places in the government, but this is one of our public facing use cases. Go ahead, Chris. Next slide. Hamilton Medical Medical Center in Georgia. This is a healthcare study. It was actually for their medical imaging with GE centricity. Their PAC system, they were looking for a more cost-effective way to be able to store a lot of this data. As radiology and cardiology are constantly generating a lot of the hospital's data. So being able to not just store the data, but also provide very unique metadata entries for those files is key, since we can actually store that and provide that back, so they wouldn't need to recall a lot of that data essentially back from the actual storage and just look at the metadata itself. Go ahead, Chris. Next slide. The Sheriff's Department at Callisu Parish actually deployed us for their video surveillance. They actually wanted to be able to have a main site, a remote site, but also have some data up in AWS for not just the R, but also to do some analysis on, or maybe some case specific chain of custody that they can track. And if it's sitting up in AWS and it's essentially locked out from their infrastructure, they would be able to compromise that data. Since body cam these days is extremely important in having durability and integration with the cloud, our software stack is able to do that. Next slide, Chris. And why customers choose Cloudian to complete their cloud vision, right? So from either a private, a hybrid, or a public standpoint, we have the highest S3 API, so we can actually run in all of those models, right? So by having that, customers can always have the comfort that when they run any tools that they would run, in AWS, they would be very, they would not run into any issues of any of their data or any other calls or any data migration or analytics tools that they're running from the cloud not to function correctly just because of that API compatibility. We can start small and grow big, as Chris has stated. We can start off as low as 100 terabytes and grow into exabyte scale. Start off with 3 nodes and grow into hundreds of nodes. We can give you granular management bucket level, and that means that you are not locked into protection schemes, replication schemes, or erasure coding schemes once you've deployed a system, just because you might have started with a 3, replication factor of 3, and you've grown. That means you can start essentially playing with different protection schemes to match your SLAs. And take more efficiency over the storage and lower that cost. Hybrid multi-cloud readiness, we've already seen that we can actually run in the cloud. You can actually have the 3-site deployment erasure coded distributed model on premise, or you can actually run it as VMs in the cloud, or you can have in a hybrid model where you can actually run some of it on your own on a hosted and replicate out to a cloud provider. And we, can provide you up to 14 nines of data durability if you have enough nodes deployed that can give you that durability number. And we also are bringing down cloud-like costs, but in a more predictable manner from a data center standpoint. I think that concludes my support here. We've probably got a couple questions in here. What does that say? Does NAS solution, what is it? Support file versioning?
Yeah, so we have a few questions, Tito, and a couple were sent to me privately, so I'll just pass those on to you and Chris now, if that works.
Sure.
And just a shout out to anybody else. If you guys have a question, please send them on. We'll be entering the Q&A section right now. But thanks to Chris and Tito for the presentation. So the first question that we got was, can you talk a little bit about multi-public cloud strategy and how it's being used in relation to duplication versus segmentation?
So you saw one of the clients had a requirement, right? So for their body cam video, they had to have an on-prem, and since their requirements were on-prem, they had to duplicate the data via replication, right? But they also had a requirement of actually sending data to the cloud. So they're essentially keeping multiple copies of that. Some of our clients have opted out for actually storing it once, and instead of their DR copy is their cloud copy. So what ends up happening is they allow us to age out the data versus, via some type of prefix that they put into the file name. They can set it at, age it out, or, set a specific date, and we can tier the data from our own software or appliance to the cloud. That way the data doesn't have to get duplicated. It's just indexed in our system and move to the cloud. So it doesn't necessarily need to be duplicated. And there's customers, it's whatever their needs are. Some customers have a requirement to maintain 3 copies, just like they are right now. And most environments they have their primary storage using snapshots. Maybe they're using Pure, using Snap Cloud, and they're tiering it out to the cloud, but they also are backing it up some way to a DR and then to a FlashBlade, or and then essentially backing it up to through some backup appliance, and that meets their requirement. But I've seen it done in multiple ways, but that's in the manner that I've seen it here. We actually can accomplish it in many ways. It just depends on what the customer wants to do and what their budget constraints, and if it's not going to violate their data compliance.
Okay, thank you. The next question, does the NAS solution support file versioning, and is it supported by Rubrik's NAS Direct Archive?
I've seen some of this NAS Direct Archive. I think we do support that, but I'll have to get back to whoever's asking that. If they can shoot me a note. My email address is on that, but I believe we do support that. But I'll have to get clarification because I think that's something that Rubrik put out, late last year, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, perfect. And then another question that came through: how granular can you get with multi-tenants?
Multi-tenants down to I think, let's see here. So the tenants are, you can segregate them all. So once you've selected that, you can go, some of our MSPs have gotten to the where we've developed or co-developed the virtual OSE. So basically it's the object storage platform for vCloud Director. And they've allowed some, our stuff to get deployed that way, but we can also do it in fashion of, multi-tenant. The MSPs will rebrand the management console, and they will be giving user access, right? And they would be giving basically however you're segregating them and providing access, their role-based access to the management console. That's what they'll be able to see within their own bucket or their own environment.
Okay. And just a note, we have one more question, but if anyone wants to send one last question through the chat, just send that to us through the chat. And the last question that we have is, can you set different protection or replication schemes?
Absolutely. So that's one of the things I was talking about, right? You're not locked in from a replication factor. So just take, for example, if you have a 7+5, right? So there's 12 nodes out there, you have 7 that are active or constantly have to be active in order to be able to read the data. 8 have to be available to read and write. But beyond that, you can actually set different protection schemes within those 12 nodes. It doesn't necessarily mean, you can say bucket A has 7+5. You can say, bucket 2 has replication factor of 4. So whatever that might be, 4+2. 8+2, it doesn't matter. It's going to be up to whatever the SLAs for that specific data is actually set to, or what it actually merits. And that's one of the things that a lot of clients love, because some of the our competitors are locked in. Once you've deployed, you're locked into that erasure code mode, and you cannot change it, right? And we can do that from a bucket to bucket.
Okay, perfect. Chris and Tito, anything else before we head out today?
Well, lastly, too, a couple slides here. We have some contact information for you. A lot of what we've been talking about, right, is cost savings. This seems to be a big concern today for everybody, regardless of your strategy and where you are, whether it's on-prem or in the public cloud. You're trying to be better guardians and stewards of the budgets that you have given. We have a very simple calculator. A lot of the conversations that we have today is your current storage on-premise. How can we help augment that to lower the cost? Maybe NAS offloading, backup environments, Rubrik environments, whatever it may be. And the other one is, how do we compare to public cloud? So we have the two conversations going simultaneously with all the clients that we're kind of consulting with. We have on our website right here, it's a TCO calculator. It's real simple. You get to play with it. It's off of your numbers. You can put in how much you're currently spending on maybe tier 1 NAS or your backup. You can put all those things in there to give you an idea of what the savings will look like for your environment. Obviously, there is 5 or 6 settings that you've gotten here, and you can be a lot more granular with our help. So we encourage you, number one, take a look at the calculator savings. That'd be a great step. We also have available a free trial too. So we have a free trial available too if you wanted to try out the Cloudian software. We have that available for you as well too. And I'm trying to get to the slide here so I can go ahead and there's your Cloudian free trial. It's the second thing you can do. Free trial for up to 45 days, right? That'll allow you to kind of feel for yourself how easy it is to manage an on-premise object storage in relation to how you might be doing your cloud strategies today. Here's the simple requirements. We've got the link right there, right down there for you to be able to go ahead and get started on a free trial. Lastly, this is our contact information. Tito and I cover all of Southern California, Las Vegas, Nevada. We have counterparts across the nation. We'd love to get you in touch. I think one of the biggest things we can do right now, it's like I started with the first question is, well, what is your hybrid multi-cloud strategy and has it changed? And if the answer is yes, that you're not 100% where you think you should be, the best thing to do is just call in Red 8 along with us and let us kind of ask you some more questions, find out. We've done this long enough where we kind of have an idea of some of the challenges a lot of other companies have faced, maybe same industry as you. We have references, we can do reference calls to kind of tell you where they were, what they kind of thought through their analysis, and where they're headed to and why they think it's a better state for them. We're happy to do that. Red 8's got some very talented people. We'd love to work in conjunction with them to have more one-on-one conversations. At the end of the day, it's your journey, it's your strategy, and we're just here to either kind of help you decide what you're doing today works good, or give you some ideas on how you can just make it that much better. So thank you for your time today. We're happy to help out. Once all the restrictions have been lifted, we'd be glad to come get and see all of you in person as well too. We love to get out there and whiteboard and just help you kind of develop or augment the strategy that you have today.